Hello, and welcome in to Addison, the 35th podcast, your Chicago baseball authority. My name is Herb Lawrence. You can follow me on Twitter at Acknerwall23. Acknerwall is the last name of mine, spelled backwards. ECNERWAL 23 for Robin Ventura. Or if you want to, go to Blue Sky. Follow me there, herblawrence.bsky.social on today's episode of Addison the 35th, and we really appreciate the folks at Just Baseball for having us on their platform. We're going to talk about the Brew Crew coming to town this week, Tuesday through Thursday. Going to talk about the opener as the White Sox employed the opener all three games in Sacramento and see if that's a good thing going into the future for this team. And then we will talk firstly about the road-weary White Sox where they went on a 10-game, three-city tour and came back with only 3 wins, a win in each city, one in Boston, one in Minnesota, and one in Sacramento. We're going to talk about the ones in Minnesota and Sacramento because usually on Addison the 35th, you don't follow me usually, and this is your first time listening. Ryan Herrera does the Cubs stuff, so you'll hear him on a different episode doing Cubs talk. I cover the White Sox, and I finish each series that the White Sox play with an episode of Addison the 35th. But since I had a speaking engagement on Thursday and also the NFL draft happened on the first day on Thursday, I did not have an episode. So this is one of 2 episodes I'm dropping today, recording on Sunday, but dropping on Monday for you. If you want to hear the other episode, it is with myself and Elijah Evans talking about the Sox minor league system and how they're doing, the people who got called up on Sunday and the people who should be called up for this Brewer series, Tim Elko. But we're going to be talking about the Minnesota Twins series since I missed talking about that on Thursday going into Friday of last week. They went off to Minnesota on Tuesday, and Bailey Ober. Man, oh man, I'm sick of this guy. Every time he goes out to play the White Sox, he gives a quality effort, and nothing different on this past Tuesday as Bailey Ober goes out and pitches well. He's now 6-2 with a 2.43 ERA in his career versus Chicago White Sox. Stop me if you heard this before, but Byron Buxton did something awesome against the White Sox to seal the game. He had a game-saving catch, and Trevor Larnach hit a home run in Tuesday's 4-2 victory that the Minnesota Twins got. Let's see if we're going to hear from that again. All right, Wednesday, Trevor Larnach hits a home run, and Byron Buxton also hits a home run. His 23rd of his major league career versus the White Sox, the most versus any other team that he plays. I think the second place team is the Cleveland Guardians. He has 14 versus them. So 9 more home runs versus the White Sox than he has versus the Cleveland Guardians, which he plays the same amount of times each year. So the Twins win that game 6-3 on Wednesday. Can the White Sox win one game? Please, Jesus, can the White Sox win one game versus these Minnesota Twins because we hate them. They came to Chicago, and I think they swept the White Sox then. Can we get one? On Thursday, Shane Smith says, yes, we can, because I am the best pitcher on the White Sox. And Shane Smith finally gets that elusive first major league victory of his. He pitches 5 innings. Him and, sorry about that, Brandon Eisert and Jordan Leisure combined for a rain-shortened shutout as the White Sox win that game 3-0. Home runs by Lenny Sosa and Miguel Vargas give the White Sox that 3-0 win. And the White Sox salvage one game in Minnesota before they head out for Friday night's game in Sacramento, where the White Sox employed the opener strategy. If you're not familiar with an opener, it started a couple of years ago. I don't know which team started, but I think most people think it was the Tampa Bay Rays who did it regularly a couple of years ago, where you have what would be a relief pitcher start the first inning of your game. Not knowing how long he can go, but the idea is that pitcher just goes 1 inning and then turns it over to what be the traditional starter going out of there after that, or you just do a bullpen game. The White Sox employed the opener strategy where they just had a guy start 1 inning and then the traditional starter takes over in that second inning. They did that for each of the Sacramento A's games out there in Sacramento. So it was Tyler Gilbert on Friday. He started the game, gave up no runs, and his inning of work. Guess who took over? Sean Burke, the opening day starter. And while he did pitch better than he has lately, it wasn't good enough as the White Sox go down to the Sacramento A's 6-5. The positive in Friday night's game was that Brooks Baldwin in the ninth inning, rocket home run off of one of the best closers and one of the hardest throwers in Major League Baseball, and Mason Miller to cut the lead to 1. But I just told you, it wasn't enough. It was 6-5. The Sacramento A's win on Friday. On Saturday, opener Tyler Gilbert starts an inning and gives up no runs in that inning. This is not a broken record. He did that twice in a row, 2 starts in a row for the White Sox. Then he gives it up to Jonathan Cannon, who took the mound in the second inning, and he already had a 6-0 lead because in the first inning, Luis Robert with the home run, Lenning Sosa with an RBI double, Brooks Baldwin with an RBI double, Michael A. Taylor with an RBI double as the White Sox cruise to a 10-3 win. Jonathan Cannon, for what he did when he took over, 7 2/3, only gave up 3 runs in his relief effort, and I put those in quotes, relief effort, struck out 5, and he looked sparkling out there in Sacramento while doing it. So 1 for 1 in the openers. So we go into Sunday, where Joshua Palacios started off the game with a solo home run. Then he handed off to opener Tyler I'm just kidding with you. Opener Brandon Eisert started the game. He wasn't as lucky as Tyler Gilbert. He did give up 1 run in his inning of work. So we're tied at 1 after the first inning. Then, my man Dart came out there and did the job. Davis Martin with 6 innings of relief work right there, where he only gave up 3 hits, 5 strikeouts, looked sparkling, and then the rest of the bullpen, up until the 10th inning, did the damn thing. No one scored until the 10th inning. We went into the extra innings. Luis Robert with an RBI single to give the White Sox a 2-1 lead. They had a chance to score more runs, but of course, a guy who's having a really terrible year, Andrew Vaughn, hits into a ground ball double play to end the top of the 10th for the White Sox. So they go into the bottom of the 10th with a 2-1 lead. Jordan Leisure looking for his 3rd save of the year, gets the first guy out, looks nice, and then the second batter of the inning, Luis Urias, gone. Walks it off 3-2. The Sacramento A's beat the Chicago White Sox 3-2 to take the series, take 5 out of 6 from the Chicago White Sox this year. That series is over already, and I'm glad I never have to see those Sacramento A's until next year because they were a pest, and I did not like them playing our White Sox. But I know some people are out there in Sox sphere thinking, openers? I'm old school. I like my starters to start the game. I like them to go 6 innings. I like them to just grit it out and tough it out. But as a person that knows this season is going nowhere and the next couple years are probably going nowhere, I love when the White Sox try things. This is not necessarily a new thing, but it's necessarily like a new thing for the White Sox to do 3 times in a row. I'm not sure in future series if they'll do this again. This is probably necessitated by just the injuries that they've had. I mean, Martin Perez had an injury where now they have to put in Bryce Wilson, who hasn't been properly stretched out. His first starting role was last week, I think, versus these Minnesota Twins that I just talked about that series, and he only went about 3 1/3. So maybe a necessity to give some rest to people who don't necessarily have enough stamina to get through some innings. And also, it's a good thing for the starters to start off with, hey, if the first guy gets through the first 3 batters or 4 batters, you start off with 5, 6, and 7. So decent hitters, but not as good as the first 4 batters. And then your second inning is versus the bottom of the order. And then when you face the top of the order, it's the first time coming through the order, and you can get through the lineup a little easier. It's a little bit more digestible than starting off the top of the first or the bottom of the first when you're going against 1, 2, 3 hitters and more. And so I'm in for anything for innovation, for trying new things for the White Sox as an organization, for messing up the other team's rhythm and plans. If they see a lefty on the bump, they want to go all lefties or all righties versus that guy, and then you put in the starter who's supposed to be starting that game, and he's a righty, and they got all righties in the game, I mean, most teams would get the gist of it and plan accordingly and just have their regular lineup in there. But maybe some wouldn't, because this White Sox team doesn't really have an established rotation necessarily with those injuries that they've had and all the young pitchers that they have. So you might think that a Tyler Gilbert might be giving you more length than just one inning, and you put in a bunch of righties when your lineup can consist of switch hitters and lefties usually. So it's something good. It's something new. The White Sox tried. It didn't work out as far as results wise out there in Oakland, as they lost 2 of those 3 games they did use for the opener. But Tyler Gilbert in his 2 opening starts on Friday and Saturday gave up nothing. And then it springboarded off for those pitchers to pitch their asses off, especially on Sunday when Brandon Iser gave up the 1 run. Then you saw nothing. Davis Martin looked like the Davis Martin that we saw last year, where he was sparkling. His kick change looked nice. He was stranding runners. He looked confident when he came into the game. Really didn't run into a lot of jams there as far as his people on base. So I thought it went well. I mean, the elements there on Sunday might have also lent it to his great start, as it was kind of windy and down, a little rainy. Just like, ugh. It felt like the marine layer was hanging over top of that ballpark the whole day, as the rain just kept on coming down in little drips and drabs. So it's a good thing for Davis Martin, Jonathan Cannon, Shane Smith to get some. I mean, Shane Smith doesn't need it because that man's been filthy the whole damn year. Maybe he does need it, because at the end of his starts, he does run out of gas, as he's a converted reliever. So it'll be very interesting to see what they do this week versus the Milwaukee Brewers. If they're looking at results and to say if it was a win or loss this week, or if it was a positive or negative this weekend, I would say it was a positive this weekend, as the openers pretty much did their jobs and the relievers, who are typical starters, went out and got the job done. So all in all, I think the White Sox should continue doing this as long as their arms are fresh. Tyler Gilbert will probably be doing this once again. One of these games versus the Brewers, hopefully on Tuesday, he'll be leading off again and then giving Bryce Wilson, who is the scheduled starter on Tuesday, a break versus his former team when he starts that inning in the second inning instead of the first inning. But the White Sox did make some news and some moves this week. This weekend, they made some moves as Nick Maton got designated for assignment, and they made a trade with the Chicago Cubs for cash considerations. They sent over the Cubs. They got back Gage Tater Workman. Yes, that is his full name. Gage, full name. Tater, middle name. Workman, last name. He's a middle infielder, utility guy. He can play a little third. He played a little third for the Cubs, and he was not good at all. Lots of errors, and that's mainly the reason why he is no longer a Cub. I think he's played like 9 games, and they're like, this isn't it. They tried that Matt Shaw thing at third. That didn't work out. Gage Tater Workman didn't work out for him. Now they're trying a hodgepodge of people, even like 78-year-old Justin Turner. Hope it works out for the Cubs, but man, the White Sox got the Cubs cast off Gage Workman. He is 25 years old, former Detroit Tiger farmhand who the Cubs picked up as a Rule 5 draft pick this past offseason. I don't know. I'm not putting my eggs in the Gage Tater Workman basket. I don't think that he will be anything. He played in a game this weekend for the White Sox. I think he came in as a defensive replacement or a base runner. Fine. He's a prospect, as Lawrence Holmes used to say, can't hurt and might help, but I wouldn't count on the might help part, because if the Cubs just gave up on him and the if the Tigers allowed him to be available in the Rule 5 draft, that's already 2 teams that have already given up on him. And with the White Sox luck as far as developing prospects as of late, even though the minors is looking good right now. If you want to check out the minor league talk, Elijah Evans episode I dropped, it's companion to this one. So if you're listening to this one and you haven't listened to the Elijah Evans one, After you're done with this one, please go over and listen to the Elijah Evans interview, because there are some exciting things happening in Chicago White Sox minor league system as opposed to what has been happening in the last 20 years. But Tater Workman will not do anything. Gage Tater Workman will not do anything to impress you or to do anything to say, oh, this guy is the guy of the future. He did hit 18 home runs down in Double-A for the Tigers affiliate, but there's nothing there, as I like to say. I just hope the young man does well enough for the White Sox that some other team wants him and the White Sox can get a low-level prospect, or he can, be DFA'd later in the year, because this is a nothing thing. I'm glad that Nick Maton's not on my team anymore until he clears waivers and is on AAA and he comes up later on, just like Mike Clevenger will do eventually. So those are the moves that I am interested in. I know there's one huge move that the White Sox could be doing before Tuesday's game, and I already spoke about it a little bit. Yes, I want Tim Elko on this team. He deserves to be on this team. Not necessarily that I want Tim Elko on this team because Andrew Vaughn is struggling so mightily. I want Tim Elko on this team because he's hitting 354. He is on base 432. He is slugging 732 in the minor leagues through 20-plus games this year. He's earned a promotion, just like Chase Mydrop earned a promotion, and just like Edgar Carroll earned a promotion. And you've seen both of those players show that they belong at the major league level. Tim Elko is doing better than both of those players did down there in AAA, and he has earned his way to the major leagues. But as I discussed with Elijah Evans on my episode with him, it will take something for the White Sox to do that I don't think they want to do, which is to release Andrew Vaughn, to DFA him, to get him off of the White Sox for good. Because we have way too many players that need playing time. If you're bringing up Tim Elko, he can play first base. He can play designated hitter. I assume he can play outfield, but I wouldn't put him out there. Edgar Carroll can play catcher. He can play designated hitter. Both of these players, Edgar Carroll and Tim Elko, need to be playing a good majority of these games. Edgar Carroll's a little younger, 22 years old, but the reason I say that he should be playing is because he's a young player and he's a switch hitter. As a switch hitter, you got to keep both of those sides of the plate sharp, or you can lose one of them. And if you lose one of them, it'd be easy to lose the other one. And for Tim Elko, he's a little long in the tooth. He's not your typical early 20s prospect. He's in his mid-20s. Not old, but not necessarily young either. So I think he's 25 or 26 years old right now. And so this is the year, as I'm talking about experimenting with the opener, experimenting with other things, this is the year to see if that guy is anything. Give him most of the rest of the at-bats at first base. The Andrew Vaughn thing, and I know the peripherals are good. I know the expected weighted on base percentage is better than his actual weighted on base. Amen. Hard hit data is great. And I am process over results guy. But even if those things even out, he's not really that good. That doesn't lead to him being power hitting first baseman Andrew Vaughn we were promised, or major league hitter can hit at the major league level when he hits the ground, Andrew Vaughn. No. Through his career, he is a league average hitter. Not a league average first baseman, a league average hitter. And as a first baseman, that's piss poor. And he's not making it up with the glove because he's below average there. He's not making it up with the speed because he's below average there. Base running, below average there. As I always say, tell me what thing that Andrew Vaughn does well. And this is not a knock on the person. I'm just saying there's only so many times we can beat our head against the wall to try to make this Andrew Vaughn thing happen. I've been a Andrew Vaughn stan from time to time saying I can see it. And maybe he needs to change the scenery like his buddy Gavin Sheets, who went out there to San Diego in his first month with the Padres, has been hitting the cover off the ball, has been in the 99th percentile in launch angle and in other categories where he's shown that barrel percentage, he's been in the 99th percentile. Maybe he needs some other voice, a fresh start somewhere else. And I'm sure there'll be a team out there willing to give the former Golden Spikes Award winner a chance. But it's way past the time for Tim Elko to be called up here. And to make that happen properly, that means that we have to say goodbye to Andrew Vaughn. I know that's going to be hard for some to hear and hard for the White Sox to do even more, but it's time. All right. On to the Brewers. The White Sox will be hosting the Brewers this week at Guaranteed Rate Field. Mercy, I'll tell you what. Going against the Brew Crew, Scrap Iron Phil Gardner. I hate that, man. You guys remember that? Hawk absolutely detested the Milwaukee Brewers. And for my younger listeners, the Brewers used to be in the White Sox division, and the rivalry between the Brewers and the Cubs that is current used to be the rivalry which was the White Sox and the Brewers. Man, Phil Gardner was the manager, dirty as can be. Hawk hated him. White Sox fans hated Scrap Iron. We hated the Brewers. Going up there to County Stadium was dirty. Ugh. Now, I love going up to American Family Field, what they call it now, I guess. What used to be called Miller Park. Love going up there. Great stadium. Seeing Bernie Brewer doing all his things, sliding down, getting a Miller Lite, getting some brats, getting some custard. Mercy. I love up there in Milwaukee. The good land. Yes. On Tuesday, we'll see Freddie Peralta 2-2 with a 2.43 ERA going against former Brewer Bryce Wilson. And remember, these are subject to change as far as the White Sox starters, as they might be doing the opener thing again. But the scheduled starter is Bryce Wilson. He has a no record with a 4.30 ERA. On Wednesday, it'll be Tobias Myers, so no record, of 4.50 ERA, going against former Brewer farmhand, Rule 5 draft pick for the White Sox, Shane Smith. Got his first victory of his major league career this past Thursday, and he is 1-1 with a 2.30 ERA. I look forward to that start because Shane Smith is appointment television right now, how he's pitching his first, 6 games of his major league career. He's been nothing short of spectacular. And yes, Luke, you are right. He is now the front runner, even maybe then when you asked the question, the front runner for White Sox All-Star going to represent them this year in the Midsummer Classic. And on Thursday, to end the series, it's Chad Patrick, 1-2 with a 2.45 ERA versus Sean Burke with a 1-4, 6 ERA for the White Sox. After that game, I will have your complete wrap up here on Addison to 35th podcast, and we'll be discussing much more and maybe have a special guest from the minor leagues. We're supposed to have a special guest from the minor leagues, and that guy got called up to the major league. We're supposed to have a special guest from the minor leagues, and that guy got called up to the next league. So Ryan Galani got called up from High A Winston-Salem to Birmingham. And so maybe sometime this week I'll break in and have that one-on-one interview with him, but it also might get canceled or postponed for a time later because we weren't expecting him to get called up, even though he's having a boss-ass early year at Winston-Salem. We want to congratulate him, and hopefully we'll speak to him. But if not, the next time I'll talk to you will be Thursday night into Friday morning, where you can hear this episode of Addison the 35th after the White Sox Brewers series. So for my Cub partner, Ryan Herrera, my name is Herb Lawrence. This has been Addison the 35th. Once again, if you want to write us an email, it is addison235th@gmail.com. You can read this right here on the episode, on the next episode, Addison235th at Gmail. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's Ecknerwall23, or on Blue Sky, herblawrence.bsky.social. So for Ryan Herrera, my name is Herb Lawrence. Thank you for joining us on Addison to 35th.